given these two functions here, here's f, here's g. We want to find f of g, right, the composition of f with g at 0. So we know that this is the name for this. Here's the operation. We want f of g of 0. Now, what is g of 0? So we know how to do this. You're going to process 0 with g. So look for g right here, and everywhere you see an x, we'll put a 0. So we're going to get f of 4 times 0 minus 1. Well, 4 times 0 is 0, so we'll get f of negative 1. Now, what do we do with that negative 1? We're going to process that with f. So go locate f. Here it is. Everywhere you see an x, replace that x with a 1. So we're looking at 1 squared plus 3 times 1. So we get, what, 1 plus 3? So we end up with 4. So we are saying that f circle g of 0 is 4. And if we draw a picture of what's going on here, I'll do it right here. We're going to start here with 0, and then we process that with g, right? I mean, you start at 0, you process it with g, and that turns it into a negative 1. Oh, let's get it, negative 1, and then you process that one with f, and that turns it into a 4. Let's go to part B here. In part B, we want to turn that composition around. Instead of f of g, we're going to do g of f of 0. So what this means is, just read it and write what you read. G of f of 0. So what we're doing now, like back in the last problem, what did we do? We started with 0, we applied g to it, and then we applied f. Now what we're going to do is the opposite. We're going to start with 0, apply f first, and then g. So what does f do to that 0? So here's 0, locate f, right here. Replace all the x's with 0. That's going to give us g of 0 squared plus 3 times 0. That's all just 0. And now process 0 with g. So locate g right up here. Replace all the x's with 0. So this is going to be what? 4 times 0 minus 1, which turns out to be negative 1. So we're saying now that g of f of 0 is negative 1. So notice here, in these two problems, notice that f of g of 0 is not the same as g of f of 0. You can't just turn those functions around. Now in part C, I want to find the general rule for f of g of x. Now what this would be for any x at all. So this would be the non-stop rule that takes us from the beginning to the end without going through that intermediate step. So that's going to be that rule that goes right here. So let's give it a go here. So this is going to be f, just translate it, write what you read, f of g of x. And we know what g of x is, right? G of x is right here. Right, it says g of x is 4x minus 1. So I'm going to put that right here. So we'll get f of 4x minus 1. Now, what do you do with the 4x minus 1? You process it with f. So you take that 4x minus 1, locate f. It's right over here, and everywhere you see an x, replace it with 4x minus 1. So I'll put the 4x minus 1 here, square it, then I'll put it here, multiply by 3. So it'll look like this. 4x minus 1 squared plus 3 times that 4x minus 1. Let's square. We have a pattern for this. We square the first, getting 16x squared. We multiply these two together and double it. So you multiply them together, you get negative 4x. If you double it, you get minus 8x. And then you square the last term, negative 1 squared is 1. Now multiply through by the 3. So where are we? 12x minus 3. So here we are. 16x squared. What do we get here? Plus, this is what? Negative 8x plus 12x is 4x. And then 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So we're getting this as a general rule then. So f of g of x is 16x squared plus 4x minus 2. You know, I'll circle that so I can find it again. Now in part D, we just want to turn this around. So instead of f circle g, let's go with g circle f of x. So just read it and write what you read, g of f of x. Now, what is f of x? Well, you know what f of x is. Just follow it right over here. Way over there, there's f of x. It's x squared plus 3x, right? It says it right here. F of x is this. So take this, x squared plus 3x, and put it right there. So we'll get g of x squared plus 3x. And now, what to do with that x squared plus 3x? Well, we're going to process it with g. So look over to the g rule. It's right over here. We're going to replace that x with x squared plus 3x. So that's going to look like this. 4, and the x is going to get replaced with that x squared plus 3x, and then we still have the minus 1. Let's multiply through 4x squared plus 12x minus 1. So now we are saying that g of f, or g circle f of x, is 4x squared plus 12x minus 1. All right, so we've done everything that this problem asks us to do, but let's just go one step further and get a picture of what it is exactly we're doing. Let's take a look at this one over here. So in part C, here's what we're doing. We start with let's start with our 3 circles so we can see what it is. So if we start with some number x, and then to x, we apply, which one are we applying first here in this one? We are applying g, right? This is f of g, so we apply g. So we apply the g rule, and that takes us to this output over here, and then to that output, we apply the f rule, all right? And that takes us to our final output. But instead of going through the individuals, we're going to go from here to here directly. So we're going to go from here to here directly, and we're going to name that, all right? We're going to name it. I'm putting the names on the outside of the arrows. The name right here I'm going to put is f circle g. So that's the name of this new function. Just a name with kind of a long name. And what is the rule itself? It's 16x squared plus 4x minus 2. Now with that in mind, do you think you could do this one here? Over here for D. You start here, you go here, and you go here. You start here with x, and just follow what we did over here and see if you can fill that in.